Nature is beautiful. Well, mostly. But sometimes nature can turn real ugly, like when mysterious chemicals are splashed on a colony of beavers, causing them to hunt down living prey with a voracious appetite, including humans. Could you survive being hunted by a horde of hungry, swimming, wood-splitting undead beavers? Well, how about we find out? We open up on a pickup truck transporting medical waste for a research facility. Always a good start for a zombie movie. The driver pulls out his cell phone and starts texting, which is probably not a good idea. Seriously, never do this for the safety of yourself and others. Case in point, his partner informs him of a deer standing in the middle of the road, but the driver is too engaged in his phone to notice. This unfortunately leads to a collision, the impact of which causes a barrel of chemicals to get knocked off the back, and it rolls into a nearby river before floating downstream. They check on the deer, but I'm afraid Bambi's not going to make it. But what of the barrel? Well, we see it eventually arrived at a beaver dam before rupturing and spraying green goo all over the place. Surely this won't be a problem for anyone else later in the film, right? We now focus on three friends going on a road trip to the mountainside together. There's Zoe, who brought along her dog Gosling, Jen, who just discovered her boyfriend cheated on her, and Mary, who wants to make this a cell phone-less, boyless weekend to focus on cheering up her heartbroken friend. They arrive at their destination, a lakeside cabin that belongs to Mary's cousin. After getting a look at that nearby lake, the next-door neighbor comes by to greet Mary and introduce herself to the friends. This is Mrs. Gregerson, who lives up here with her husband and dog, and tells the girls she's nearby if they need anything. How kind. They now head inside to unpack and settle in, and despite being told not to focus on phones, Jen immediately sneaks off to the bathroom to try and text her ex. But to her dismay, there is no cell phone signal because horror movies got a horror movie. Zoe takes this news extra hard though, arguing the classic complaint of what would they do if there is an emergency, to which Mary informs her that there is still a working landline phone at least. Not sure if anyone even knows what those are nowadays. The gang decides to relax at the lake next and hang out on the floating anchored wood raft at the center. While out there, Jen soon notices a beaver dam nearby. Wanting to see one of the adorable creatures, she starts to swim over to it, and is soon followed by the other girls. When they get over there though, they don't see any damn beavers, just a beaver dam covered in green goop. They assume it's urine or something that the beavers mark their territory with and ignore it for the most part. While searching for the little critters, the girls suddenly encounter a big critter as a grizzly bear shows up. Thankfully, it's soon scared away by a gunshot, and we are now introduced to Smith, with a Y. He's a hunter, and either a terrible one at that since that bear was unharmed, or he was hunting a different game and just happened to accidentally scare it away. Either way, the girls are safe now. They thank the man, who doesn't like the fact that they are exposing themselves in this nice neighborhood where kids could come by. He's not talking about Zoe being topless for sunbathing either, but all the girls showing their stomachs and various tattoos. A little sensitive, don't you think? The girls think so, as they are now weirded out by Smith and start heading back to the cabin. That night, while the girls are getting wasted and partying together, a banging sound is heard on the side of the cabin. Zoe, in a drunken stupor, goes to investigate it. She opens the door, shines a flashlight, and calls out for any serial killers in a taunting, joking fashion. Her friends warn her to stop, but she just heads outside completely and into the darkness. That's a good way to get yourself. At least it would be if any of this was real. However, as we see a killer rush from the dark at Mary and Jen on the porch, he reveals himself to just be Tommy, Mary's boyfriend, playing a hilarious prank on them. They are soon joined by Zoe, returning in the arms of her boyfriend, Buck, and Sam, Jen's unfaithful ex. Apparently, Zoe invited them all up there because she cares nothing for Jen's feelings and is extra thirsty, if you know what I mean. Mary tries to get them all to go, but Jen says it's okay for them to stay. They were all supposed to be here anyway before Sam messed things up, and she says this way, she can face her problems instead of running from them. That's actually a very mature and brave response. Didn't expect that. While the other couples are busy getting down and dirty, Jen decides to get cleaned up and goes to take a shower. However, when she pulls the curtain aside, she finds a not-so-cuddly beaver friend is waiting in the bathtub for her. The thing lunges at her, and Jen barely escapes unscathed from the bathroom. She runs to Sam for help, and the others soon come to see what all the commotion is about. After she explains there is a rabid creature in there, they all decide to investigate the washroom while wielding a baseball bat. At first, they don't see anything, and Buck even starts to mock Jen's fears. But he soon finds out her claims were very true, as the crazed beaver bursts out from the sink cabinet and attacks him. Thankfully, Tommy is quick to react with his bat, and he beats the creature to death, with it taking a noticeably excessive amount of hits to finally bring down. After which, they toss it into a garbage bag and leave the corpse on the front porch to be dealt with in the morning. However, as the gang goes to bed, we can see even after all of that damage, the thing still isn't dead. Or should we say it's still undead? Well, either way, let's see if we could have handled things better. Going back to the truck at the opening, obviously chemicals like the ones in the movie here should have been transported in a more secure vehicle and by more competent drivers. Of course, this has to be ignored so the movie can happen, but still wanted to point this out. And again, drive safe. After being at the lake and seeing grizzly bears and a hunter firing weapons way too close to residential areas, I'd say we should pack our bags and head home. This place is already a little too dangerous for my taste, and we haven't even gotten to the undead varmints yet. If we are going to stay though, at least be more alert so these threats can't sneak up on us. And maybe wear an orange vest or other bright colors to avoid getting shot by accident. As for the critter in the bathroom, no idea how it got there. Sam does sneak in through an open bedroom window though when he arrived, so maybe it entered in a similar way and just wandered into the bathroom. Regardless of how it's there, we still have to deal with it. To do so, we shouldn't travel in such a tightly packed group like they do. That will make it harder for us to evade if the creature attacks, and give us less room to strike if we are going to attack back. Spread out. In addition, we have no rush to enter that bathroom. We should take this chance for prep time and use it like Batman would. We should gear up for a fight and wear thick protective clothing. Anything that could help reduce or prevent scratches and bites. We wouldn't likely be thinking it's an undead Zombeaver at this point, but we know it's a wild animal and it could even have rabies. Prepare accordingly. The following morning, the gang goes out for a swim, and Jen notices the trash bag is ripped open. The others dismiss this as just a wild animal eating the they left out overnight, which is a fair assumption. However, upon a closer inspection, with the rip mark directions and the single pair of bloody footprints leading away from the bag, it would be fairly obvious to deduce that the creature inside had ripped its way out. This would have given them an early warning sign of what they are truly dealing with, but oh well. At the lakeside, everyone is swimming or enjoying the raft except for Jen, who is sitting out. Her friends try to convince her to join, but she's worried there could be more ravenous beavers in the water. After some teasing and peer pressure though, Jen starts to head in with them. Before she gets far though, Buck is suddenly pulled under the water and resurfaces holding his own. Guess it wasn't safe after all. They all start to panic and swim to the wooden raft, as it's closer than the shore, and barely make it there as Tommy fights off a beaver. After tourniqueting Buck's CGI stump using the dog's life jacket, more beavers arrive. Yeah, not so funny now, is it, guys? While they are dealing with that, Jen runs inside to call for help. However, the phone lines are dead, as we see claw and teeth marks through the cables outside. Not sure if the beavers are that smart or just that lucky, but either way, it's bad news for our would-be survivors. Suddenly, a beaver comes out of nowhere and attacks Jen's leg, knocking her to the floor. Oh boy. Let's hope that virus isn't transferable to humans or that she's at least immune. She wrestles with the creature on the ground before throwing it off and hoping on the countertop for safety. Unfortunately, the beaver can also jump up there no problem and starts coming after her again. We see it's barely held together by strings of... So this is likely the beaver from the shower returning to finish the job. Before it can attack her own beaver, Jen quickly grabs a kitchen knife and critter's neck, ending it. Hopefully for good this time. Back at the raft, the beavers start to swim up and ram it from underneath, breaking through the boards. Other beavers attempt to climb up top, but the group are able to punt them away. More beavers are coming though, and they won't be able to handle them all at this rate. They want to swim to shore, but don't think they can outswim their attackers, so Sam picks up Gosling and throws him overboard as a decoy. That's one strategy. An insanely cold logic monstrous strategy, but a strategy nonetheless. Poor Gosling doggy paddles for his life, but doesn't get far with the carnivorous beavers on his tail. Rest in peace, pup. The rest of the group now makes a dash for it and swims to land before heading to the safety of the cabin. The beavers surround the place and menacingly watch over it, as the gang inside examines the beaver that attacked Jen. It's somehow still alive after everything, just to the counter by the knife. I think at this point it's safe to start calling them by their proper title given name, Zombeavers. As everyone tries to wrap their head around what's going on and what to do next, Zoe is too busy being furious about the loss of her dog at the hands of Sam. He doesn't apologize properly and even says it was just a dog, causing her to go off. Mary attempts to calm her down, but while enraged, Zoe reveals that Mary was the girl Sam cheated on Jen with. Apparently, Jen just knew he was kissing someone at a party, but couldn't tell who due to the angle of the photo taken. Well, now she knows, and how does she react? She says, "There are bigger problems right now." Quite a mature and sensible reaction. Very refreshing to see in a horror movie for a change, and not what I expected from one called Zombeavers. As the gang tries to decide a plan of action, Buck is still bleeding out, and they don't believe he will last the night without a hospital. Due to this, Tommy and Zoe decide to help rush him to the car and go for help, while everyone else wants to hunker down in the cabin and wait for backup. Not the worst plan, as if everyone tried to cram into one car as a single group anyway, they could be more easily picked off. Splitting up, however, divides the Zombeavers' attention somewhat, and could allow for both groups to survive. Tommy takes the keys to Mary's car since he parked way down the mountain for their epic prank yesterday, and helps Buck along with Zoe to the car quickly. They make it without incident and drive off, as the remaining survivors start to barricade and board up the doors and windows. The driving group makes it a fair distance down the road before encountering a roadblock caused by Zombeavers falling trees onto the path. That is diabolically clever of them. While trying to figure out what to do next, Tommy notices a deserted truck nearby. He examines it and finds guns inside as well as an axe in the back. He hands the axe to Zoe, telling her to turn the car around and head back to the cabin while he goes on foot for help. Before he can travel anywhere else though, another tree is toppled over and Tommy is by it. As Zoe goes to check on him, she's attacked by a Zombeaver herself. She swings her new weapon at it, but misses. A good effort at least. Thankfully, before the creature can counterattack, Smith shows up and blasts it away with his rifle. He helps her and Buck into his truck and they drive away. Smith has no clue what's going on either. He just knows he caught a beaver in a bear trap earlier and it wasn't dead when it very much should have been. Well, it's sad they lost Tommy, but at least they found another survivor. And with weapons and transportation too. Back at the cabin, the remaining survivors are finishing their patchwork job when some Zombeavers start to break in through the gaps in the window boards. Thanks to some quick knife stabbing and bat jabbing though, they repel the invading beast. Guess the things can still feel pain. That or they have the proper sense to preserve their own lives. Smith and their friends arrive soon after and attempt to get inside. However, they are unable to since these geniuses boarded up the front door. The inside group starts removing boards as fast as they can, but the Zombeaver horde soon returns, so the outside group makes a break for the neighbor's house. Smith takes a few out, or at least shoots them away, as they make their way inside the Gregersons' home. Once there, they call out for the residents, but get no response. After a brief look around, they find the couple, or what's left of them, bitten. The wife's dead in her bed, and the husband died by the telephone, appearing to have been going for help. The phone lines here are also chewed through, with our characters wondering if that's intentional or coincidental. I say with them doing that once before, and after seeing them make a roadblock on the only path off the mountains, the critters are absolutely smart enough somehow to isolate their victims, making them a much more serious threat. So in the main cabin, they are researching beavers through an animal book. Don't think that will do them much good since these aren't your average beavers, but still couldn't hurt to get more information. In the neighbor's cabin, they are reluctantly deciding to wait until morning before attempting another escape off the mountain and preparing to cauterize Buck's leg to help stop the bleeding. All fairly good choices with the limited options they have. Well, is there anything else we could or should have done up to this point? Let's take a look back. Going for a swim the day after dealing with a vicious beaver is a terrible idea. Jen was right in thinking there could be more of them in the area, and I'd rather wait to go swimming at another time and place. Swimming in nature already has enough risk factors already, and I wouldn't want to add aggressive animal to that list. Throwing Gosling as a decoy was an extremely cold-hearted strategy, but I can understand Sam's thought process. They may not have been able to make it to shore otherwise, especially with Buck missing a foot, and if someone has to die, I can understand selecting the dog before a person. Still, even if we value human lives more than animal lives, it doesn't mean we can't also appreciate and care for the animal and its sacrifice too. He should have been a lot more apologetic to Zoe, and not cause a rift in the group by acting so heartless. I'm surprised that out of spite, she didn't come up with her own escape plan to throw Sam outside as a decoy, that way they can all make it to the car while he's being devoured. For the survivors that stayed, boarding up the windows isn't a bad idea for safety, but boarding up their only means of escape is a terrible idea. You always want to have an exit available to you in any situation, but even more so in a life-threatening one. If a beaver somehow got in, like the one from the bathroom before, how are they going to get away from it if the exit is barricaded? And for that matter, as we see in the film, how is rescue or any other survivor supposed to enter if it's blocked? I mean, the Zombeavers are smart, but they can't open doors as far as we know. So all this does is make it harder for survivors to use, and doesn't stop the Zombeavers any more than it just being shut would. That being said, if the outside group wanted in that bad to stay together, they could hop in the truck and drive around in circles for a bit while the inside gang removed the boards. But going to the other house was a good alternative. Could have allowed for them to find more survivors and a working phone if they had gotten there sooner, and there was no way to know who or what's there without trying it. As Mary tries to sleep, Jen enters her bedroom before slowly climbing on top of her and holding her arms down. As Mary has conflicting emotions about where this is going, she gets pretty certain the emotion to feel right now is fear, as Jen's fingernails and teeth fall out and are replaced with sharp claws and huge chompers. Guess it was contagious, and people can be turned into half-human, half-beaver zombie hybrids. Mary fights the Zombeaver woman off but gets cornered in the room. She's rescued by Sam, thankfully, who sp Jen with the bat, and they escape. Over at the neighbor's place, they aren't as lucky. While distracted by a sound outside, Smith is jumped by Buck, who is now a zombie beaver man. As he's getting mauled, Zoe attempts to use the rifle, but she's a terrible shot and accidentally hits Smith. She next tries to escape out the door, but is greeted by a Zombeaver, so she instead heads up the stairs. She makes it to the bedroom, but only because Zombuck was missing a foot. Unfortunately, the room she just locked herself in had the corpse of Mrs. Gregerson lying in it, who now rises back up to attack. Zoe attempts to use the rifle one more time, but it's out of ammo, so she instead leaps out the shut window. She doesn't really stick the landing, however, falling hard onto a pile of broken glass and splinters, lying there motionlessly. Back at the original cabin, Zombeavers have made their way through the floorboards and are popping up like a game of whack-a-mole. They fight them off for a while until they lose their weapons and have to hide in the bathroom. Now they are violating yet another golden rule. While in the restroom, Mary demands Sam to strip so she can make sure he's not bitten and at risk of turning. He complies and demands the same of her. Once the two are naked though, they barely look for injuries before they start getting busy. Oh, come on, time and place, guys. One of the Zombeavers in the living room starts to chew through an electrical wire, which sparks and sets it ablaze, and it spreads the fire around as it panics through the house. This distracts our two lovebirds before they are interrupted by Zombeaver Jen bursting through the floorboards. The Zombeaver woman takes a bite out of Sam's hardwood, if you catch my drift, and Mary makes a run for it. Cold of her to just leave him, but maybe she assumes he will just turn anyway and wants to focus on self-preservation. She's stuck in the house still though, filled with zombies, smoke, and fire. But she's soon rescued by Zoe, who drives Smith's truck through the wall. I feel like that would have done considerable damage to the vehicle and made it undrivable, but hey, it's movie physics, and at least rescue is here. As they try to drive away, they encounter Zombie Beaver Smith, who's intelligent enough to still use guns. He fires, but he misses as they swerve into a tree to avoid the bullet. Zoe panics and attempts to restart the truck as several Zombeaver humans are heading their way, and even a Zombeaver bear. They get away thankfully, but Zombeaver Jen somehow stowed away on the roof. A quick slam of the brakes sends her flying though, and they with the tires for good measure. Eventually they drive long enough to arrive at the downed trees that block the exit, and they get out to continue escaping on foot. They seem to be in the clear, but Mary suddenly pulls a handgun on Zoe, having found it in the hunter's glove box. She claims that Zoe is bitten and going to turn, but Zoe tries to explain that her wounds are from glass, not bites. She requests that Mary at least wait until she actually turns, which is very fair. Not only do we not know for sure if she's even bitten, but she could potentially be immune. Don't kill her if she's not an actual threat right now. Just keep your distance and watch over her if you're suspicious of her changing. While Mary stands there contemplating what to do, she ends up being the one that starts to turn, and Zoe quickly dispatches her with an axe. She also more than double taps. Looks like Zoe is the only survivor to this horrible nightmare now, as she limps down the road to make it home. Thankfully, she eventually sees a pickup truck coming and flags it down. But we see that inside the vehicle are the same medical waste transporters from before. The partner informs the driver of the girl standing in the middle of the road, but the wheelman is still too engaged with texting to notice. Well, so much for Zoe. But let's look back one final time to see if there was anything else we could have done to maybe end up with more than one survivor. There was no way to know that Jen and Co were going to turn into Zombeaver people themselves due to bites and scratches. However, we did know we were dealing with rabid beavers, and eventually knew that they were virtually immortal beavers. That's cause enough to want to quarantine and monitor anyone attacked by the things. This way, when they turned, we would have at least had them isolated and contained and less likely to attack us. When Mary and Sam escaped to the bathroom, checking for wounds was a smart idea, but this was not the time for it. Instead of wasting time doing that or having some intimate fun, they should have just been climbing out that nearby window that they suspiciously neglected to board up. Better than sitting and waiting in a dead-end bathroom while defenseless. Lastly, if you're going to flag down traffic, make sure you're not standing in front of it while doing so, unless you don't mind being on the receiving end of its grill. I know we want them to stop, but I wouldn't recommend playing a game of chicken in order to get rescued. After all that, we are treated to a post-credits scene, where a bumblebee is seen walking around on a Zombeaver corpse before returning to its hive. Well, I guess we can all look forward to the sequel now, Zombies. But on a more serious note, remember to respect nature and not to pollute it. Respect your friends so they hopefully do the same. And respect wild animals both big and small to stay safe when crossing their paths. Hopefully by following these simple steps, we won't end up like any of the victims from this B-grade movie. And with that said, my friends, take care of yourselves and I see you in the next one. Peace out and binge another one.